So, folks, welcome to the inaugural edition of Cine-Geezers. Two old men who love movies, who want to share some of their knowledge with you. My name is Mike Dobbs, and with me is my good friend Stephen Arbisette.
Hi, it's good to meet you all here, and let's hope this is just the first of many powwows like this, Mike, that we can share with folks.
Well, as you can see, Stephen has actually got a real backdrop from his collection. Um, I just got my room full of crap. So,
Oh well, behind my backdrop is another room full of crap. So trust us.
so this podcast came about because Steve and I talk movies all the time, and one of our favorite things is to share is the fact we're both working on book projects, and we both have the same tendency of going down rabbit holes, going down places that may not really have a lot to do with the book, but by the time we're down that rabbit hole, we're really enjoying the process of,
Exactly.
of figuring out other stuff. So this show is going to be a little bit about rabbit holes. It will be about the books we're working on. It's going to be about other people's books and projects who we really want you to get to know about. Um, so anyway, um, I gave Steve some stuff the other day because I guess I don't need it any longer, but he needs it, and that's going to be the sort of the basis of today's program, which is what did I give him? And it was a bunch of my variety annuals. Now look at that. Look at that.
Look at that. I mean, these are, let's see, this one that you handed me is 610 pages of variety goodness from, let's see what year I grabbed, May of 1980. So, and look, it was only $2 back then, Mike. You shelled out $2 for this thing.
That's
So,
right. So growing up in Western Massachusetts and being a movie kid was not always the easiest proposition. Um, I really wanted to learn more, and I found out that a newsstand in Chicopee had copies of Variety. They'd have maybe like two or three copies. There wasn't a big market among the casual goers to get their Time magazine or the Ladies' Home Journal to pick up a copy of the Bible of show business. Um, uh, but I did that, and I saved them, and I was intrigued by them. Um, I was intrigued by the language that was in Variety, the specialized slang about the movie industry. And I was intrigued by the ads. It was like, oh my God, what is this movie? It's so weird looking. Am I ever going to get a chance to see it?
will it ever exist? Is there really such a movie? As the years went on, it became evident to us which had and which had not become movies in many cases. So,
I was also intrigued by the people who kept running ads. An actor named Zach Norman, who's best known for being in oh, now my mind is going to go off. The Michael Douglas Romancing the Stone. He had
right,
a small
right.
part in Romancing the Stone. This guy had an ad in Variety every week for years, and it always listed the same one or two credits. And I thought, why is he doing this? This isn't right.
It landed him a role in Romancing the Stone.
I
There you go.
guess another one, and Steve and I talked about this the other day, was director Henry Jaglom. Used to run these ads all the time, and it's like, so as a kid, I wondered, was this how business is done? You know, you want to get some attention, you run these little photo ads in Variety. So
Yeah,
Variety,
and we should also mention Variety didn't just cover the motion picture industry. It covered television, stage, all aspects of show business. Not as intensively as other magazines. It also would cover in the back pages the recording industry, and so on. But the bulk of the focus of these giant yearbooks, these weren't even annuals. These came out more than once a year. Were the film markets, and these I usually revolved around MeFed or one of the trade shows, one of the motion picture trade show markets. So these ads were targeting hey, distributors, buy our movie, or or help us find a distributor for our movie, sort of thing. Um,
I think I don't buy weekly variety because number one, it's very hard to get. Um, I do look at variety online, of course, but I don't even know at this point how much of these film markets still exist. I know that the Cannes Film Festival, has a film market that's
right.
associated with it. But you just mentioned MeFed, and those were the additions I look forward to because, right, they're like 600 pages,
Yeah,
and
they're
page after page.
Bibles. They're giant Bibles, or more accurately, catalogs of all these films. Um, and often the covers would reflect, you know, this one is focusing on Cinecittà in Italy. Um, this is the International Film Manual from 1977. Um, so it was this was always English language, but it covered the international markets. And I know, I don't know for you, Mike, but for me, that was part of the allure. Like, it was thanks to these annuals that I found out, oh, these Italian horror movies are being made. How can I see them?
Right, right.
Um, you mentioned you're being able to pick them up at the newsstand in Chicopee, Massachusetts. I grew up in northern Vermont, and I first discovered Variety at our local Waterbury, Vermont radio station, WDV. And when they were done with them, they just put them in a cardboard box in the office in the front room as you walked in the door. And I got brave enough one day to visit WDV's offices. I don't remember why I worked up the courage or what the impetus was. But when I saw those varieties, I asked what they were going to do with them. And they said, oh, well, we just throw them out. Do you want them, kid? And so I would go in, not every week, but I would go in every so often and relieve them of the annoyance of having to throw out their issues of variety. And this would have been around 1970, 71 until about 74 when I went to college. And then these annuals, I don't remember how I first saw my first variety annual, but when I did, I was like, oh my God, I've got to get my hands on more of this stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I just think, again, the way these film markets would work is you've made a movie. Now you need to find a distributor. Um, and so it's just not an American distributor. It means who,
Everywhere.
right? How can you distribute your film to Europe, to Asia, to South America? Uh,
It's not only I've got a movie. A lot of times the ads are, we want to make a movie. So they prepare an ad as if the movie exists. And they're basically floating a title in a promotional campaign to see, will anybody bite? Later issues, once Charlie Band, the producer who later founded Full Moon Productions, once producers like Charlie Band were out there, he would have huge color inserts with fully painted artwork with exploitation titles of movies that didn't exist, but Charlie said they existed. And they were basically putting these ads out there to see, was there a distributor interest, and if there was, then they would quickly make the movie. Which was something Roger Corman and his brother Gene Corman had been doing. It's something that American International Pictures had been doing back in the 50s, famously with films like The Beast with a Million Eyes, where the ad and the titles created by Jim Nicholson, the partner at American International, that title sold the film. And then once the film existed, there's a famous quote in one of the AIP um, histories where a theater owner said, I'll pay you to get rid of that movie and make a different movie with that title. So, I'm sure that the variety ads back in the 50s were similarly geared toward what can we sell? And if somebody goes for it, we'll make it. But a lot of the ads in here, like you say, Mike, are for films that existed and they were seeking distributors. And you might see an ad where when the film opened locally at your drive-in or neighborhood theater, or as Variety called them, the Nabes,
The names.
Um, it was under a different title, would have different ad art. You might not make the connection. Oh, this is that movie I saw in a Variety annual a year and a half ago. You never knew.
The other company that did this kind of advanced selling and was notorious for it was Canon,
Oh yeah.
because I've got my pile of varieties here, which we'll try to.
We'll sift through them and we'll share with you some of the goodies.
But with Canon, Canon had this habit, and it's described in. There's two really good documentaries on DVD about Canon, and
Yes.
they take different approaches, and if you watch them together, you really get an idea. But Canon was these two Israeli filmmakers who had success in Israel, um, parlayed that success into coming to the United States, where they would advertise a film with concept art and a title. And like
And
Steve,
usually a star. They would also make sure to list a star. Like Charles Bronson was in way more Canon films than he was actually in. So,
right, Canon stars like Bronson. Another big Canon star was Chuck Norris.
yeah.
You know, they tended to make cheap action pictures, a few horror movies, but a lot of action. And later on in their life as a studio, they tried to get they wanted to get respect.
They wanted it to be classy. All the independent studios seem to go through that phase, you know. Well, maybe not all. I don't think Full Moon ever went that route, but Corman with New World Pictures began importing Ingmar Bergman and Akira Kurosawa films and Francois Truffaut films. Canon, like you say, wanted to get respect, so they start doing our version of our adaptation of Lady Chatterley's Lover, you know. But they would track down the star of Emmanuel 6 to be in it. So,
So a good example of the Canon formula is I found an ad for King Solomon's Mines. Now, it does not have a single star associated with it.
right,
It's just
we're
King
going to make it.
Solomon's Mines, which for folks who are younger than us, H. Rider Haggard was a very popular adventure writer, turn of the century, early 20th century. King Solomon's Mines was one of his big books. It had been made by MGM with Stuart Granger.
Yep.
Uh, one of these big MGM prestige projects with stuff shot in Africa, et cetera, et cetera. So now fast forward a good 20, 25 years, the book is in public domain. It's got a title recognized by a lot of people. They may never read the book, they may never have seen the original movie, but they know the title. So this is the hook with the worm that Canon
Right.
then extends into the me-fed pond.
Exactly. As they did with She, another H. Rider Haggard. They made a version of She that was unrecognizable, has nothing to do with the H. Rider Haggard novel. Um,
So
Sybil Danning starring in that one. And Richard Chamberlain ended up starring in King Solomon's Mine for Canon.
and then they made a sequel to that as well, based on the success. And the success for Canon was how many distributors and sub distributors can they line up? How many territories would say, oh my God, I want that film and I
Right.
want it for Southern Germany because that's where I have a territory of theaters, et cetera, et cetera. So literally, they could they could go into profit in a film without even shooting a bit of film.
Right. And they also, I mean, I've some of the annuals you gave me that go back to the early 80s, they were already promoting, they had the rights to Colin Wilson's Space Vampires. And they ran ads for Space Vampires for 3 or 4 years before finally Toby Hooper's Life Force, which is the title they changed Space Vampires to, opened compliments of Canon. So
So
you
I'm
can
not
track in these annuals, like what properties did they actually have that they were trying to spin into feature films? What properties did they wish they have? Death Wish, for instance, which originally belonged to another production company, but they were intent on acquiring that, and they ended up, contracting with Michael Winner And they ended up making the Death Wish sequels through Canon because they locked down Michael Winner, director, Charles Bronson, star, and then anything went. It didn't matter as long as Bronson was in it. They could put a number behind Death Wish. It was a go.
So let me open up a copy here and let's see. I'm hoping that we can see a good chunk of this.
When they
Uh,
realized it wasn't just a violent nightmare, it was too late to escape the guns.
Now, this is like my introduction right here, 1981 with Hong Kong cinema. It's
Oh,
through
yeah.
variety because in 81, the only place you could see Asian movies like this was literally in a Chinatown theater. You'd have, for me, growing up in Granby, Massachusetts, I'd have to go to New York City. There we go. Bruce
Yep.
Lee, spelled
Bruce Lee, Paul Smith in Return of the Tiger,
L-I.
Transit Films Limited, right?
So I would see these ads and I would go, I want to see this. Where can I see this? You can't see it. You have to find literally a Chinese theater in a major metropolitan area with a Chinese population to see these things. Until, of course, VHS came around, and then that was our true way of
Right.
experiencing Asian filmmaking was through VHS. Um,
You also had a lot of, I mean, here's, I just randomly grabbed the May 1977. Here's early ads for Terry Gilliam's first feature, Jabberwocky, a completely different, ad graphic than they later used for the film. And Paul Morrissey's completely botched The Hound of the Baskerville parody with Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. Um, well, on the back cover, here's Arthur Davis's Witchcraft, a Mondo movie essentially about true witchcraft,
so
Satanism.
he did. I remember seeing as a kid, I said to his face, it's like, well, who is this guy?
Who's Arthur Davis? Yeah, exactly.
Arthur Davis, and he would have those kind of Mondo movies, and
Savage Man and Beast, yeah, exactly. Those kind of atrocity films.
so let me ask you a question. You went to the drive-in a lot more than I ever did during our misspent youth. Did you ever wind up seeing like some of this stuff that
Yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, I remember seeing the Variety ad from one of the issues of Variety I got from the radio station Waterbury for a film called Man from Deep River with Ivan Razumov, and you couldn't tell from the ad what the film was. It was Ivan Razumov, the lead actor, strapped up, and it looked like a knockoff of the Richard Harris film. Um, uh, why am I drawing a blank? The
called
Richard
horse?
right, A Man Called Horse, which its entire ad campaign was built around this ritual that Richard Harris's character had to go through, this torture, this, coming of age torture to be accepted into a tribe. So here was this Italian movie called Man from Deep River. What is it? But I was curious, and I never forgot the ad, and it popped up at the drive-in on the Barry. There were two drive-ins on the Barry Montpelier Road, about 15, 16 miles from where I was growing up. And I caught it there on a double bill with another Joseph Brenner released exploitation film that I don't recall. I just remember Man from Deep River. And lo and behold, there began one of my obsessions, my good friend Mike. It was the first Italian cannibal movie. No one knew it at the time. In fact, the director didn't even know it at the time. But it all started there with The Man from Deep River. That's where Cannibal Holocaust, The Last Cannibal World, Cannibal Ferox, Make Them Die Slowly. That's where all those films began. But that was one that immediately comes to mind where I saw the ad in just an issue of Variety, not an annual, and never forgot it. I think I tore it out. I had a file cabinet, one drawer file cabinet that I kept Variety clippings in until my college years. I had to leave it in my college dorm room because when I was moving out, I had nowhere to put it, nowhere to go, and I just left it in the dorm room. I'm sure it got trashed, but there was a lot of film history in that file cabinet. Reviews of Mark of the Devil, reviews of Tombs of the Blind Dead. These are all movies I eventually caught, but I first read about them in Variety.
well, And you know, I recently lent you my my little tattered scrapbook that I put together like in junior high school because I wasn't we had a family farm, and that family farm meant getting up at 5 and 6 in the morning and doing stuff. And going to drive-in was not something that was in the cards for me. Uh, you know, because drive-ins, the show started about 9 o'clock at night. And of course, so I was fascinated by this stuff. And a lot of this fascination was fueled by variety and these ads. So I would clip out drive-in ads. Um,
Yeah, your scrapbook was tremendous.
and it was just like, these are movies I know I'm never going to get to see, but I'm absolutely morbidly fascinated by them. Um,
The Oblong Box, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, Captain Nemo and the Underwater City. I'm remembering some of the ads that were in
yeah,
your press book,
yeah.
Valley of Guanji. Um,
Well,
yeah, for me, it was different. I grew up with a family that owned a grocery store. And here's why I ended up going to the drive-in sometimes 3 times a week, Mike, is I would be scheduled for 40 hours of work in our grocery store. It was a mom and pop shop. We had gas pumps, we had a little deli counter, we sold beer and wine. Um, and my dad would schedule me for 40 hours and then he would schedule himself. And I often had to work dad's hours as well. It's part of why I was able to pay for 3 years of college myself out of my savings after working at the family. But
sure.
once I had my license at age 16, my permit at age 16, and then my license, I would borrow the family car and go to the drive-in because it meant dad had to work his shift. Like I was not going to get suddenly pulled in. Oh, I'm going to go to a Knights of Columbus meeting, Stevie. Cover my shift. So going to the drive-in was both an escape route and my self-education. As you and I have talked about often, Mike, the only way as a kid in the 60s and 70s to learn about movies was to watch TV. There were very few books or magazines other than monster magazines. And these variety issues that you lucked into and that I lucked into at the local radio station, these were our classroom books, if you will. And our classroom would be if we could get to a theater or if we could get a TV in the home to watch a movie. And at that time, folks, this is before, long before VHS home video, long before streaming. You might only have one chance in your entire life to see a movie. And that's how it felt. And for us as movie nuts, as movie addicts, that was a real addiction, and it was a craving that we couldn't shake. And for me, once I had a license, man, if I could get the family car, I was at the drive-in was great. Double feature minimum, often triple features. The great ones were, Memorial Day or July 4th, Dusk to Dawn shows where I could go to 3 or 4 drive-ins in a week and catch up to 15 movies in one week. So
Well,
I
I've
did.
got I my whole thing was talking about exposure. It was, I'm sure, similar with you. I mean, we lived in areas where basically we had minimal TV. You know, it was antenna television. This is before the widespread use of cable. So basically, there was like three basic channels. So for me, I would watch everything that I could on local TV, but then that meant it was whatever package of movies
Right.
someone had bought. I remember writing to our NBC affiliate saying, I really want to see horror movies. Why don't you guys show horror movies?
Did you
And
get a reply?
yeah. And the reply was, we don't want you to see horror movies, basically. That was the reply.
Well, there's a
Not it.
parental scolding. Yeah, right. Exactly.
But yeah, so a lot of times, you know, the thing is you'd see something in variety and then you'd hope to see that movie come to your area. And then you hope that you would be able to see the movie that came to your area.
Well, and then you'd see ads for movies that just never were going to exist. I still have in my files variety tear sheet for a promotion. It was a half-page ad for Ilsa meets Bruce Lee in the Bermuda Triangle. Okay, so this was Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, from that trilogy of films, and Bruce Lee, who was dead, and they mashed it up with the 1970s fervor around the Bermuda Triangle being this mysterious region where ships and planes disappeared. That film never got made. I wonder why, you know.
But we wanted it to be made.
I still want it to be made, Mike. I
So
can honestly say, to my knowledge, I've never had a dream in which I saw that movie, but I have had dreams in which I saw movies that only existed in ads and variety. You know, in the dream, I'd be walking into a theater and going, "Oh my God, this is that movie!" You know, um,
so I found this, and this is about as most timely to our discussion as we could come up with. Again, hopefully we get this. This
bring
is
it up. Oh yeah, the primevals lifted higher, Mike, higher, 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 higher. The primevals. There we go. The David Allen Charlie Band feature film in pre-production. Which what date is that Variety Annual from?
this date is 1983.
Boy,
Now, the reason I'm showing Steve this, and the reason that I want to bring this up to you, gentle viewers, is this is an example of a film that was advertised in Variety, and I remember seeing this, going, "Oh my God, this looks so cool! It's like Ray Harryhausen, you know? Oh wow!" When did we get to see this, Steve? Last year, right?
last year finally came out on Blu-ray from Charlie Band. He fulfilled his promise to the late great David Allen. David Allen passed away what 20 years ago, Mike?
Yeah.
And they kept the film going. They kept working on it. So
And despite the fact of my antipathy toward Charlie, most of Charlie Band's product, I have to admit that I'm not a huge Charlie Band film fan. Um, this film, which is now on a beautiful Blu-ray set, is well worth your attention and well worth watching. But to me, it was when I was going through these the other day in anticipation of our discussion, I was just like, "Oh my God, there it is! They're out there trying to find this audience, trying to find this group of exhibitors. They're going to say, yeah, we're going to put money up front to reserve our print of the primevals." And
you know, there were also films like one of the pages I had marked to share with you during this was here's an ad for an Italian film by Alberto Di Martino called Holocaust 2000. Look at the cast, right? Kirk Douglas, Simon Ward. It's a
Anthony,
knockoff of The Omen. And the Variety ad says Holocaust 2000. This is from May of 1977. I saw that film at the downtown Dover, New Jersey Baker Theater when I was going to the Joe Kubert School as a student, and it was playing under the title The Chosen. And it wasn't until I got halfway through the movie that the light bulb went off like, oh, this is that movie. I mean, there was no clue. I should have caught into it because Kirk Douglas and Simon Ward were in it, but you know, we didn't remember the specifics of these ads. Did you? Like, I couldn't have named who was in Holocaust 2000, but
what is happening to me is that if I go through these things, then I'll remember that I was interested in this film. Interested
ah,
in that. There's another film that was advertised, and you talked about the feeling if I don't go see this in this theater now, I'm never going to see this motion.
right,
Right.
right, right.
So there was a movie made by two members of the Firesign Theater, Proctor and Bergman, called J-Men Forever. And J-Men Forever is a film in which they took clips from Republic serials and they crafted a whole new narrative, and it was all centered around smoking dope and rock and roll.
It
How it
was a spin on What's Up Tiger Lily, what Woody Allen had done for American International Pictures with What's Up Tiger Lily, where he took a Japanese gangster film, Yakuza film, spy film, and turned it into a comedy. But, you know, Procter and Bergman were taking it to another level by excerpting entire serials and boiling them down.
yeah,
How many featurettes were there that comprised J-Men Forever?
quite a number, and with representation from a lot of major Republic serials. I bring this up because number one, I had the same experience as you. I wound up seeing the film twice at the AMC Theater in Hadley, Massachusetts. I was going to UMass because I said, I will never see this thing on TV.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
going to be on TV. Now, I bring that film up because the producer of that film then did a second film called Meet Them. What was it? Meanwhile, Back at the Ranch, and there was an ad for it in Variety, and it's a film just like J-Men Forever. They tried to construct a narrative around clips from B westerns.
Ah,
So in one film, you see everyone who was a star in B western, including my favorite Tom Tyler. But you had Roy and Gene and Bill
Bob
Green,
Steele. Yeah,
Bob
right.
Steele.
All of them.
You got them all. Um, I didn't see that film until a couple years ago when I happened upon someone who was selling it on DVD,
Oh, wow.
and I picked it up. And um, so this is another example, just like Primeval, of something that attracted my eye like how many years ago? Damn near 30 years ago. And it's like, then finally you get to see this thing. I, I watch J-Men Forever probably once a year because I'm a huge Firesign Theater fan, as well, you know. Um, the other film is not as good. Not as
Oh, yeah. Well, it doesn't have Procter and Bergman
doing
doing
the script.
the satire, right?
Yeah. So, but that was another example. One of these films from Variety that I'm like, what is this, and will I ever get to see it? And in the case of Primevals and Meanwhile Back of the Ranch, it took me what at least 30 years to be able to see these things. But thank you for Variety. Thank you for them taking out an ad because now at least I was aware of them. You know. Um,
Well, and then I mean, you and I are hoping to be able to converse with Sam Sherman, the
yes,
producer Sam
there we
Sherman of
go.
Independent International, and here is an annual from the late '70s. There's an entire Independent International Corporation ad in our ninth big year, and it's one of those multiple ads,
Yep.
right? Multiple movie ads, including Blazing Stewardesses, a film that you used to show in your film class to your
Yes.
students. Space Mission to the Lost Planet, which I saw under a different title. I think it was Horror of the Blood Monsters
Is
was
that
the
the
title.
one where they tint a Filipino film?
Yeah,
Different.
yeah. Sam Sherman had purchased a Filipino prehistoric man versus monsters film from the late 50s, early 60s, and cobbled around it, working with director Al Adamson, his business partner and creative partner, a space adventure that ended up on this prehistoric planet. And then they color tinted the black and white footage so that they could present the film as being in color. Anything goes with these exploitation films. And that was a film in particular that I point out in this multi-picture ad because Sam still had it in circulation in the late 70s. And that's a film that I saw when it opened in the early 70s. He
Right.
was still making money off of it under a new title with a new ad art by Gray Morrow. The ad art I saw for Horror of the Blood Monsters was Neil Adams, which is why I went to see the movie. Like, oh my God, a Neil Adams poster. The movie didn't look anything like anything Neil Adams drew, mind you.
Just want to clarify for people who are shrieking in horror at the idea that Blazing Stewardesses was actually shown at a college level film
There
history.
was a reason you showed it, Mike.
Yes. Here's what I discovered. Um, and Steve has heard this story before. It's hard to describe what good direction is unless you have something to compare it to. Because to me, good direction is sort of invisible. You know, when you're watching a movie, you're not really paying attention to the direction if it's good because it's presenting the story in such a way that you are involved in the story. You're not involved in watching camera movements per se. You're watching the story. So I said, well, I've got to show them a really bad movie. And I alternated between two. Uh, uh, Steve, you found what we think it may be the most important
Oh,
movie
yes.
ever made called Terror on the
In
Amazon.
the jungle, Terror in the Jungle.
Was it Terror in the Jungle? Okay.
Terror in the Jungle, right. The world's first Calvin and Hobbes movie, although Calvin and Hobbes didn't exist yet. in which a little boy is stranded in the South American jungles, and his only companion is his little stuffed tiger, which magically comes to life and saves the boy at the end of the film. Spoiler alert, sorry, folks. But the movie has what, four directors, I think, Mike?
Yep. And you
Three or
could
four directors.
that
Uh,
they tag teamed this. It was like, okay, we'll shoot this and I'm done.
yeah. One director handled the airplane footage at the beginning of the film, during which a nun actually falls out of the airplane when the emergency door opens up and the nun falls out. Then, once the plane crashes, another director handled the castaways trying to make their way through the jungle. A third director handled the lost Aztec empire that they stumble upon, in which there is a huge dance number in front of a cardboard Aztec temple. And I believe the fourth director was one who handled all the interstitial stuff of the sobbing little blonde boy stumbling around wherever they shot the supposed jungle sequences.
I would show that film, and then I'd alternate it with Blazing Stewardesses, which is producer Sam Sherman's sort of homage to Republic serials and Republic westerns.
And vaudeville.
Yes,
And vaudeville.
It's a couple of airplane stewardesses, flight attendants, to use the politically correct term today, go to relax at a dude ranch, and the dude ranch, you find Republic cowboy star Robert Livingston, almost unrecognizable. You find Republic cowboy star Don Red Berry. You find Yvonne DiCarlo as the proprietor of a nearby brothel in the desert.
Got to have a cat house. And this was Sam Sherman's very successful follow up to the success Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles had. Blazing Saddles went through the roof, and he rushed out Blazing Stewardesses, which was also plugging into the airline stewardesses cycle, which people have forgotten today. There was a whole cycle of airline stewardess softcore sex films, one of which was in 3D. Do you remember the title of that one?
No.
I think it was The Stewardesses.
That okay. We're getting a two-part.
We're getting in the weeds here, but we knew we were.
Folks,
welcome to the weeds, the Cine-Geezers.
Welcome to the rabbit hole. You're in your first rabbit hole.
This is a deep rabbit hole. Yeah.
Anyway, I would show Blazing Stewardesses. And Steve said variety. The variety comedy was provided by. It was supposed to be provided by the Three Stooges, and then Mo Howard got sick and died. So instead, Sam Sherman dug up the two remaining of the three Ritz brothers, they were a fairly successful movie comedy act. They were more successful, I've always read, in nightclubs and in Vegas.
And they went back to the 30s, right?
Yeah, and they, two elderly guys doing slapstick shtick. It is a film that you need to see. See Blazing Stewardesses to understand just how good or bad it could be.
We will now shift gears a bit. So here's a variety ad that if I had seen this variety annual, Mike, I would have ached to see this movie. Death Trap, directed by Tobe Hooper, starring Neville Brand.
Right.
Now, I never saw it playing in a theater under the title Death Trap. I saw it as Eaten Alive.
Right.
I've got all the one-sheet posters. I should have hung them up behind me for this session. I have a one-sheet poster for every iteration of Death Trap. It was released ultimately under 5 different titles with 5 different distributors, 2 of which had this same very vivid, striking ad art of Neville Brand with the scythe and the crocodile.
Yeah.
But what a cast, Neville Brand, Mel Ferrar, Carolyn Jones as Miss Hattie. You were talking about Yvonne DiCarlo playing a cat house madam. That's what Carolyn Jones from the Addams Family was playing. Marilyn Burns from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. William Findlay, the Phantom of Paradise himself. And Stuart Whitman as Sheriff Martin, the kind of role Stuart Whitman played often in these kind of films.
Right.
Um, if I had seen that ad, I would have been completely obsessed with it, as I would have been this ad for a successor to Yellow Submarine called Devil's Riff with the ELO, the Electric Light Orchestra, and Seiji Ozawa and the Boston Symphony Orchestra. As far as I know, this film doesn't exist, was never completed.
But look at the pedigree. You've
Yeah,
ELO, you've got the Boston Symphony Orchestra, you've got the director and creator of Godspell. I mean,
making a an Exorcist knockoff in animation.
right, by the
I'd have gone. Would you have gone, Mike?
I mean, I would love to see that. And I remember seeing that ad, by the way. I remember seeing that ad and going, again, what
What is?
is this?
Well, we'll never know what
So
that is.
we got to bring up something that was a standard thing in Variety. Of course, if I can find it now. Um, and it was always up toward the front. Here we go, which is our top grossing film.
Oh yeah, and that was for the week, right?
Right.
50 top grossing films for the week.
Every issue of Variety, regardless if it was, a phone book edition for a film market or its standard weekly edition, I would turn to this just to see what was making money, and just out of sheer curiosity.
What
So,
was making money the week you've got there?
okay, so this is the week ending October 19th, 1983. The top moneymaker, Never Say Never Again. Then The Big
James
Chill,
Bond.
right? The Big Chill. Romantic comedy, Brainstorm, the highly controversial last film of Natalie Wood. Night of the Zombies.
Ooh, at number four.
One, two, three, four, five. Number
Number
five.
five, Night of the Zombies. Little knockoff Italian film playing in America under that retitle.
Okay, just so you know, that week it grossed 500, more than half a million, $550,000. The
And for
pre
you zombie fans out there, that's the film that's on Blu-ray now under the Italian anglicized title Hell of the Living Dead. It played in America as Night of the Zombies. And I saw it first run in Springfield, Massachusetts, Mike. Whatever the theater was that was right by Margarita's, the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
So it was in West Springfield.
So they'll also tell you how many cities the film was in, how many were, so Night of the Zombies. It's in the last week. It made only $30,000. It was in, and its rank was number 40 on this 50 top grossing film list. It ran in one city, so one theater made 30 grand. But the next week it was in, let's see, does it say how many cities? 40. No,
Wow.
I'm sorry. No, it doesn't say for that. It does, but it went from $30,000 to $500,000 over the course of 1 week. So they must have opened this thing wide up in places. Oh, it was in 71 screens. 71 screens for that $500,000. It averaged $7,746. Only 4 weeks on the
Wow.
chart, and overall it was at $945,666. Now and I know that Night of the Zombies was probably a very low budget film,
Super low budget film, definitely.
and
Yes.
here it is pulling after 4 weeks in America almost $1 million. I bet they went nicely into profit on that.
They went very well into profit. They didn't pay much of anything to acquire that movie.
So I also used to look at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
So I cannot pronounce this. It's that sort of head movie, Koyaska Squad.
Oh, Koyaanisqatsi.
Yeah.
Koyaanisqatsi. Yeah.
So it was at the bottom. It was number 50. It had made $27,000. It had grossed to date $500,000.
Well,
But I would look at this thing, and I would try to like figure out like if there were trends or what could I what could I
What can you glean from this?
exactly what could I glean from this?
And
Uh,
you know that's what every movie producer was doing every week. They were looking at that list going, what should we make? What should we be putting our money behind? This is again from May of '77. I've got the 50 top grossing films of the week. Uh, this is I actually have a backstory to share on this one. So in May of '77, the number one ranked movie was Larry Cohen's It's Alive.
Great movie.
Okay. Now, the week it's at the top, it had earned $786,250 and ranked number one. The week before, it had only earned 19,700, and it was by this time running in 121 theaters, so it had bumped up its release from the week before, and it had already earned $1,438,672 at the box office. Now, why am I focusing on It's Alive other than it's number one in May of 1977? I showed that film in 16 millimeter at Johnson State College at the beginning of 1977. You could rent it from Warner Brothers on 16 millimeter. As we now know from the documentary about Larry Cohen, he went to Warner Brothers and said, look, you guys killed this movie back in 1974. You should put it back out there. They put together the new ad campaign with the baby carriage with the claw coming out of the carriage. They blasted TV stations with the promotional ads, and they made a fortune on It's Alive. And I remember before it opened theatrically, I mean, we showed it at the college, being told by the 60 millimeter distributor when I mailed back the print, and I would always call to confirm, okay, it's in the mail, here's the tracking number. And the distributor, and it would have been the Warner Brothers 16 millimeter catalog, because you could only get Warner films from Warner's own 16 millimeter division. They said, boy, you got that one right under the wire. We're pulling it out of 16 millimeter. And here it was playing a couple of months later in theaters and raking in big bucks. What else was in the top five? Rocky, Annie Hall, Slapshot, and Black Sunday. These are all major studio, not the Mario Bava Black Sunday, the one with Robert Shaw and Bruce Dern,
Yeah.
based on the novel by the writer whose next novel would be Silence of the Lambs. So, you know, It's Alive was beating out these major competitors this 1 week. But let's compare. It's Alive had brought in $1.5 million roughly, and Rocky was already over 22 million at the box office, and it was still holding its place at number two. Since you went to the bottom of the list, I won't go into the numbers, but just a few of the titles at the bottom of the list this week.
Oh yeah.
Superbug the Wild One, a Love Bug knockoff. Meat Cleaver Massacre, a film even horror movie junkies like I have a hard time conjuring up. If You Don't Stop, You'll Go Blind.
Oh yes. The distinction of that being Robin Williams's first film.
Exactly. And a Sam Sherman reissue, Uncle Tom's Cabin. That was the German film with Herbert Lom as the name star. Sam Sherman bought it. They added gore footage to it and reissued it once again. Andy Warhol's Bad. And at the very bottom, Jabberwocky and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But Monty Python had already racked up $7 million. It had already been released for quite a time. Anyway, yeah, I love that list too, and I used to go and check on it as well.
Yeah, it just you know, so here's a couple of teenage boys in the wilds of New England, and this was our link
Our
to
link to Hollywood.
a movie world that we both somehow wanted to participate in. Um, you know, I've given Steve a bunch of these.
Yeah,
But
I'll grab another one so I'm not just talking about 1977. What have you got in hand there, Mike?
you know, I'm looking through a 1977 Variety Annual, and here's a whole huge story that is a interview with Nat Levine that I'm going to be going through carefully, Nat Levine was a producer whose distinction, he has two distinctions. He discovered Gene Autry and put Gene in his first movie, a serial called The Phantom Empire. And then his second distinction is that he was one of the founders of Republic. Um, and he's one of these fascinating movie history characters of a guy with nothing that started making something, um, and then unfortunately burnt out way too quickly. But this is the this is the value of these old editions
Oh
is
yeah.
the ads. It's like, oh my God, now here's something that I can use for my Tom Tyler book because Tom did do a serial with Nat Levine. So
It's
what do you
interesting you mentioned that. One of the annuals you gave me, I'm about, for those of you who don't know, and Mike, you and I should post our credentials somewhere to
Oh yeah,
accompany Cine-Geezers. I wrote a massive 700-page book on David Cronenberg's 1979 The Brood. It was published as a midnight movie monograph by PS Publishing in the UK under their Electric Dreamhouse imprint that Neil Snowden created. Um, I've been commissioned by PS Publishing to write some new material for a paperback edition of that hardcover book. And in one of the annuals that Mike gave to me, I comb these things. And when I say comb, for those of you who think we're just looking at ads, I mean, these variety articles are, double page, multi column, sometimes tiny bullets. And I found in here that the very year that The Brood was still in distribution in the spring of 1980, the studio it had been filmed in, the Kleinberg Studios near Toronto, was for sale in May of 1980. And I'm going to use this to open the new chapter that I'm writing for the Brood book. So just as you're using, Mike, that interview with Nat Levine on your Tom Tyler book, I'm finding riches in here that I can apply to multiple book projects. You never know what's going to be in one of these issues of Variety. You just never have any idea. You may even find photos of Richard Deacon with Martine Beswick in Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood, right? So a shout out to Doug Winter. There's even a shot of Richard Deacon puckering up with another man at the bottom of this ad.
that's
So
Adam West.
yeah, he's with Adam West. Exactly. In bed with Adam West in The Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood. And who is promoting it? The Cannon Group.
Yeah.
So you see how all this ties together, folks. Mike and I see these connections. We're going to try to communicate these connections to you with every one of these conversations. Some of them may make sense to you, and some of them you may go, those guys are knuck and futz.
That's well, to close out our initial offering here, we want to talk about some books that have come our way that we really like and admire. Um, this is a book that both Steve and I have read by
A fantastic book. Who was the author again? I didn't.
Thomas Reeder.
Ah.
Thomas has done something that nobody else has ever done, which is to actually look at the Neufeld brothers, Sig and Sam. Now, if you watch B movies from the 30s, 40s, 30s and 40s, you're going to see on a lot of pictures produced by Sig Neufeld, directed by Sam Neufeld. And these are brothers, and they did a lot of their work for little state rights independent producers in the 1930s, and then they became the backbone for PRC,
Publishers Releasing Corporation,
and which in the 1940s was considered the lowest of the low of the studios.
Yeah, they were considered under Monogram, and that speaks volumes right there if you know your film history.
So they made westerns, they made horror films, they made a lot of the infamous Bela Lugosi vehicles for Monogram.
They made East Side Kids movies. They made musicals. They made science fiction films. They made everything.
They did, and it's Tom does this in incredible detail. In fact, when I met him last year up at Capitol Fest in Rome, New York, I said to him, I admire the fact that you actually sat through all of this stuff because it's not easy sometimes.
Well, he also had access to a lot of production records. I mean, in that book, he shares budgets, shooting schedules. I mean, basically, something that might be translatable for people who are listening and watching us with this podcast is that the model under which the two Sams worked, it was essentially the model adopted by television later. Like they were cranking out these feature films in 3 to 7 days under very constricted budgets. And once in the 1950s, we began to have studios shifting gears to produce television, half-hour TV, 1-hour TV programs. They were following precisely the production model that these producer director teams had already been using since the 30s and 40s. We have this much time. We have these stars and co-stars. We have these cinematographers. We have got these script writers. It was often the same team
Right.
on a given series, and they would just crank out 4 to 5 movies a year, those teams alone, because PRC was putting out new product monthly,
Right.
if not
But
weekly.
I was looking through the autobiography of Colonel Tim McCoy, who was a major cowboy star, and he worked for these guys at a company called Puritan, and he talked about the shooting schedule for a hour long B Western was 3 to 4 days. So in 3 to 4 days, you're going to have to get all of it, the chase scenes, the fight scenes, the exposition scenes,
Everything.
everything in 3 or 4 days because that's the money that they had. This is for anybody who wants to understand a real nuts and bolts approach to filmmaking. This is a great book to do that.
It's
Because,
also the book you need if you want to understand what a B movie really was.
right,
Everyone uses the term B movies and no one uses it correctly. These were B films.
right. So that's my recommendation. It's easy to find on online bookstores. I hardly recommend it. I think Steve hardly recommends it as
Oh
well.
God, yeah.
We both read it. What do you got?
My favorite book of the year right now, although that'll could change when the next favorite book falls into my hands, is Greg Coulon's volume 1 of what I believe is going to be a 3-volume biography of the great Willis O'Brien, the man who animated King Kong. This first book covers Willis O'Brien's career from 1915 until 1933. It includes exhaustive records. It's beautifully designed, lavishly illustrated. There's material in here I've never seen anywhere. Now, Willis O'Brien's career, prior to this book existing, Willis O'Brien's career had been written about exhaustively by Don Shea. And Mike, do you want to tell folks who Don Shea is?
I can't remember.
Cinefex, the man who founded Cinefex. Right. Sorry.
Okay.
And Don Shea had done the first article biography of Willis O'Brien for a British magazine called Focus on Film. And then later he revised and expanded that for one single issue of Cinefex, which was sort of a digest format, landscape format magazine dedicated to special effects.
Right.
After that, an author named Stephen Archer did a hardcover book for, I think, McFarlane. It may have been Scarecrow. It was one of those library format hardcovers on Willis O'Brien.
Yep.
This is then the fourth stab and by far the most complete of covering Willis O'Brien's career. In fact, it covers a lot of material that had come to light in the decades since those Don Shea biographies, including an exhaustive, detailed account of what went on between Willis O'Brien and the producer of Ghost of Slumber Mountain, Herbert Dolly, who for decades now has been slighted as the villain in Willis O'Brien's career. And it turns out the opposite might be true. And I'll leave that for you folks to discover in reading the book. It also covers exhaustively what led to the making of the 1925 The Lost World, all the legal battles behind the scenes concerning who owned the rights to the adaptation of the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle 1912 novel. It tracks not just the productions we knew about, like Creation, the unfinished um, dinosaur film that led to the production of the world famous King Kong in 1933. But it also covers, you know, films that Willis O'Brien did matte paintings for, films that Willis O'Brien did 2 special effects shots for. An artist like Willis O'Brien, he's known for King Kong, but he still had to make a living between, trying to complete these super productions. It's just a terrific book. I can't recommend it highly enough. And as I say, this is currently my favorite book of the year 2025. So 2 recommendations there from the Cine-Geezers.
There we go. Okay, well we've hit our hour mark. So
wow, we've been succinct, Mike.
I know we've sort of held control of ourselves.
Well, we will be back. Both Mike and I have a lot of ideas for things we hope to do with this podcast. We're also hoping to be talking with guests from time to time. And Mike, you'll be getting this out into the world. You are the distributor that we're seeking in our variety annual ad.
That's true. I need to make up an ad that it looks salacious, and
I did the best I could by putting the Bayou poster up here. By the way, we should explain our backdrops a little bit. So behind you is your home library research area, including I can see your Betty Boop figures up on the shelf behind you. Behind me, I will always change this up for the podcast, are one-sheet posters from my own collection. Bayou from the late 1950s is better known under a title we can't put on the screen, but I will tell you that it has the words poor and the word white and the word trash in the title. And that's what the reissue title was for Bayou. And it became one of those movies that never left the drive-ins. It was circulating in drive-ins all through the 60s and through much of the 70s. Directly behind me, the Hammer film, The Devil Rides Out, which was released here in America under the title The Devil's Bride, directed by the great Terence Fisher. Script by Richard Matheson, based on the book by Dennis Wheatley. And over to my left, you are right, is the one-sheet poster for the double bill of 2 of the German krimis, The Phantom of Soho and The Monster of London City. I will always try to dress my set with something that serves as appropriate eye candy.
Okay, well, challenge accepted. I know you have fabricated a nice framing thing.
It's called a clothesline. Here, I'll tip it up. It's a clothesline with clips on it, Mike. So it's not a very high-tech solution, but it looks pretty good when I just in front of it. So.
All right. Well, until the next Cine-Geezers, my name is Mike Dobbs, and he's
Stephen Arbacet.
There you go.
Wish you happy viewing.
All right. Take care, everyone.
We'll be back.